It appears we are about 56 minutes late. Um, Good afternoon, everybody. I mean, here it's turning afternoon in about 3 minutes. So I figured out what happened and I didn't start an hour earlier. That's because there was a calendar set up before daylight saving time changed. And there's a difference in the dates between United States, Canada, Europe, and whatnot. It's the mess that happens usually around March. And the result was that my calendar entry, I'm correct. So I'm actually starting in 2.5 minutes. But the streams I scheduled, and I scheduled them, were for an hour earlier. But the way my brain works is if there's a calendar entry that tells me we're starting at noon, although I know that I'm starting at 11, the calendar takes precedence. In any case, yeah, YouTube can say whatever it wants. Whatever my calendar says, that's what happens. Yeah, I was wondering why this day seemed a bit longer than it was. So, welcome everyone, whoever didn't lose their patience. Let me just, yeah, there are other things going on as well. And I'm getting notifications. I hope everyone is well, enjoying the last day of winter. Hello, everyone. Drake and Dean and Paolo and Augustus and I Fazenko. Hello. Or is that a lowercase l? I have an issue with I's, little I's, so capital I's and lowercase l's. That is my biggest, let's say, nemesis. So let's see where we're going to start today. We're going to do the housekeeping and all that later on. I just want to make sure that I don't start before it's the top of the hour. We have 1 more minute for me to blab on and wait for people to come, just in case. I mean, everyone out there, you're a smart bunch, and you will realize that, if it doesn't start at 11, it will start at 12. And that is my hope. It appears that we have at least 20 people watching over the two YouTube channels. And Jay, hi from Arizona. And yeah, I heard the Arizona climate is nice. It's warm and dry. Exactly, I kind as I like it. Okay. Garamond. Wow, I haven't heard that word for a long time. Garamond. And I think there was Apple typeface that was Caramond with a C, if I'm not mistaken. It was a slightly different version. Yeah. Okay. So I think now in 2 seconds, 1, 0, and of course delay. It's going to be 10 more seconds for you, and I think we can start. And officially, this is the start of the webinar. We have quite a few questions. If anyone was watching the Game Asset Create with Max on yesterday, our friend, um, oh my God, I have I'm drawing a blank. Oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, we had an absence yesterday, and I had to cover, and I made a big blunder. That's the point of this. That I made a big blunder, and well, within my blunder, I found exactly what I did wrong, and I'm going to fix it. So sorry, my name totally blacked out. The name totally. Rodolfo Silva, our one of our resident ZBrush geniuses. So I'm going to start with that. So the information is out there, and it has to do. Let me share a screen. So let me go here. The whole idea was the following: go and watch the yesterday's stream. The idea is that you can render a bunch of stuff. So you can go, and I'm going to show you what I mean here. So here, what we have here is a bunch of frames, black and white frames, which is 64 frames, 65 actually, 0 to 64 frames of a flame burning. And in order to create a single flipbook tile, there's a lot of documentation about these. This is a technique where you render one big square with all your frames in it, and in your game engine, all the game engine does is switch the UVs from each square subsequently. And actually, here it's from bottom left and goes right, and then next and next and next. You can change the order and so forth. And this allows for these 2D graphics to be presented as sprites and with very little um, cost for performance to create animations. And in order to create these flipbooks, usually you use uh, the dedicated software, but we can actually do it in mograph. So basically here I'm creating an 8x8 grid of a plane that is 100 by 100 centimeters. And I've just got my camera here, for anyone that missed it, at 90 degree. It's 90 degrees. And the distance in the Z is the same as the half the width of the cloner, which now it's 800 because we have 100 times 8 tiles. And this is how we're going to render this. Now, the way to load these images, all these images have been loaded using a multi-shader. And yesterday, my mistake was I set the mode to index ratio, because that was, it just, that we'll get the indices for the clones 0, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And each and every one of these images is going to be used for each and every one of the clones. That is wrong. That is wrong. Let me show you the indices here. Index. You can see all the indices of these. Now, this is standard renderer. This is not Redshift, because we're not going to perform any high quality render. This is just a scan line. I want this to just take a snapshot of this and render it as fast as possible. So I'm using standard render, and I can take advantage of mograph's multi-shader. Now, in order to make it work properly, we need to change this to color brightness. The index ratio, what it does give you 0 to this number. So it's going to go 0 to 7 here. But then every vertical is going to be 0 to 7, 0 to 7, 0 to 7, and so forth. And this is pretty much, the index ratio is a vector that has, the first number is the row number. The second one is column number is the first one. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The second one is the rows, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the third one is the Z as your clone, if it has any Z. So forget about it. Color brightness. And how does the color brightness work? I'm going to remove this here. We need to go to the cloner, and we need to use a step effect. Make sure the step effector has a linear a linear ramp here. And you go to the parameter, turn everything else off, and turn the color mode to the effector color. What this is going to do is put a percentage of between black and white between the first and the last clone. And now that these clones have been have had this distribution of color, if we go and add this material now that has been designated as color brightness, then each and every one of the clones is going to be the proper frame. Okay, and you will see that there's a difference between this one and so forth. And this plays nicely. Now, one thing I did just for fun, and I like to do some things for fun. I'm not gonna. Let me see. Where is it? I think I have it here. Let me see. Point lights. Let me see. This is a fixed. Not this. Not this. What did I do with that? I did some Flipbook. I forgot where I put everything. That's a disgrace. Give me a second. This is not my favorite, my best day. So let me see. Tiling, mograph, explosion. Where is it? Mograph. I made a nice little file with a little espresso, which allowed you to play these. I had the camera animating nicely. I can't find it now. I'll find it later on and make sure to share it. But in any case, what I wanted to highlight today was that if you watch yesterday's stream and you're wondering how to make your flipbooks, the major changes you need to do is make sure that this mode in the multi-shader is not index ratio, it's color brightness. And before you apply this, you just make sure that you put a step effector, that it has only the color mode in effector color and nothing else, no other parameters. That way, you're going to get the gradients you need, the colors, in such a way where this will work properly. And that's what I have to say about this particular setup. Let me check and see if we have any interesting questions. Let's see, Flipbook mograph. I had this here already. I'm going to talk about this later on. And yeah, so let's check the questions. There you go. We got the comments. Oh yeah, now I get it. Differentiating between the I's and the L's and all that and the ones. Garamond is the one. Okay. Oh yeah, the UV manipulation, that was quite interesting. So it's just a comment by Dean. Yeah, I did a very simple UV manipulation yesterday to get some flames. Okay. Uh, I do not know, and even if I knew, I couldn't say. And if I could, I wouldn't, just to keep it a surprise. So everyone else says hi. So let's continue with some nice little questions here and see what we can come up with. So I'm going to go to the spreadsheet, because we do receive everything in a spreadsheet. Okay, and let's begin. Okay, there was a question that I sort of answered indirectly by Steve from Canada. So I'm going to create a little banner. I'm going to try and do this properly. Just create a banner. I'm going to paste it here. I'm going to add the banner, and then I need to show it. So how can I select multiple edges using scene nodes? Now, the best way, because edges are a weird thing in Cinema 4D generally when it comes to programmatic. An edge index does not exist. I showed last week. I showed how you would go about selecting edges and so forth. But there is a little secret that you can use when you want to deal with edges, and I'm going to show you what all this is. It's quite logical, but let's begin here. So the idea is that I have this plane, and I have this great idea to create a nice little modifier that will extrude all the outer edges, and that's pretty straightforward. What you can do, you can get a border selection. Let's turn this on. A border selection node, and you just tell it either to do something with the edges or do something with the polygons. So I'm taking the border edges, and basically I'm feeding them in the active selection. And the active selection is just the selection you have when, and this is something I say it every time because not everyone is aware. So I have a editable model, and I select a few polygons. All right. And in these polygons now, I'm going to start modeling. I'm going to do extrude. I'm pressing D, extrude. And you can see that although I've added topology, the selection remains. This selection that remains is the active selection. If I do inner, this happens. Even if I use preserve groups, you can see that the polygons are still retained. This persistent selection that Cinema 4D allows us to do for modeling is called the active selection. And it also means that when nothing is selected, no, that's the default. So I'm going to leave this out for now. Now, let's go back to this. Let's go to nodes. So what I'm doing here essentially is that I'm feeding all the border edges to the active selection, and then I'm just extruding the default, which default means if nothing is selected, everything is selected. If something is selected, that's the active selection, something like that. And therefore, we are moving these around. Don't forget, when you're extruding edges, it always considers 0 to be the normal direction. This is a default. That's why you need to set this to 90, which is not the normal direction of the vertices of each edge, blah, blah, blah. Now, I've done this, and then I realized that I want to do something else. I only want to extrude the edges that happen to be on the maximum X. So this needs a very different approach in this particular thing, a very different approach. This needs a programmatic approach because what, these three edges here, what are the conditions that make them the ones we want to extrude? And it's just because they happen to be the further on the plus X. Now, Nodes doesn't understand that. We need to explain it. And for this reason, we need to go step by step and do certain things, right? So I have this here. I'm going to put it up here, and I'm going to build it up again. So here we just have our plane. And I'm going to create a points info. The points info gives us information about the points, including the positions, edges, and all that kind of stuff. And because I want to see which of these edges happen to be on the X, there is no edge info because an edge is just defined by the 2 points that are on the start and the end. That's what an edge is. An edge is defined by 2 points. If we want to do anything to procedurally select an edge, we first need to go and select the points that make up the edges we want to select. So we go here and we say, okay, we have the positions and I want to go through them and, I want to iterate. So, or not, I know I have all the nodes up there, but I'm pretending I'm doing it from scratch. So you get this array and you iterate it because you want to be able one by one to go and compare. I want to compare the X value. And if it's larger than, well, this plane is around 100. That means that if it's, around 50, so larger than 49, these are the edges we want. Now, there are other ways, depending on the mesh and all that. You need to find the logic that, if this was a disk, that will be a totally different thing to extrude it. Maybe I do want to put a disk. Let's add some spice to this. I like to live dangerously. So what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to all the polygons that happen to be on the plus X side, I'm going to extrude. So I'm going to make it even more. So if the X value of any of these points is larger than 0, that means they're on this side. If I make it less than 0, then it's on this side. Okay? And I'm going to put larger, greater, or equal. So it grabs this point as well. It's not going to grab this one, but it's going to grab this one and this one. So when this is true, I want to do something. Now, we need to know how Cinema 4D Nodes deals with this kind of information in order for us to decide what we are going to do. My objective is to go and generate a point selection, right? The select node. I'm just going to create it from scratch, select. So you put a select node, and I want it in points. And in order to create a selection, I would like to create an array with all the indices of these points. So let's go here, options, and say point indices. And you can see that I want the numbers of the points that happen to be on this side of my disk, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 16, 15, and so forth. I want these to be added to a little array. And there's a trick we use, and it's one of those things where I'm going to show in one of my upcoming tutorials. When we are creating arrays, the append elements, which means put this new value at the end of an existing array. And first of all, we need to define what kind of an array this is going to be. This is going to be an array of indices. And you can either go here and say structure, array, and all that. Or what you could do is grab an existing array of indices, array of integers, there you go, and put it in here. It will automatically convert it and then just get rid of that. That's a little shortcut. And there's a convenient little count here because I may want to add something 2 or 3 times. The count, though, if I expose it, the comparison gives me a true or false, which is equal to 0 or 1. When my point is not larger than 0, I'm going to get a 0 here. So if I put this in the count, it's not going to add whatever I want to add here if the point doesn't satisfy it. And the question now is, what am I adding? Well, I'm adding the index of that point. So at the end of this array, we're going to get an array with the indices of each and every one of the points whose x-axis is larger than 0. Now, the one little problem we're going to have is that this is going to grab this center point as well. And programmatically, you need to be expecting this. So many of these edges are going to be selected. We only want the outer edges. But there is a little trick we can do. We can do another comparison that compares the z. And we need to make sure that the z is not, let's say, 0, right? It has to be different than 0. So let's see what happens first with this. Now, by default, the selection string is a string, but we can go and add another selection type, the one you see here, by right-clicking and saying inputs selection. This is a selection for, although the selection string is going to work, the selection for arrays works better. And now that we have all these points selected from the incoming geometry, so from the whole geometry, I have this selection generated. I'm just going to go and these points here, these points, I want to transfer them in the same way that when we have a any object. Let's go here, editable. If I have point selections here, go and select points. Whoops, there we go. If I control click here, I can select edges. So this is what I want to do now. I want to get all my points and control click transfer the selection. If you go to select, you will see somewhere here it says convert selection. Okay, so let's go back here, go back to the nodes, and let's go here. So yeah, someone thought it would be a good idea to rename it to transfer selection instead to convert. Anyhow, it just makes things a bit more fun. And transfer selection, and I want to transfer the selection from my vertex points, right? So to edge. So now this, I can feed it in the extrude, and it will create some sort of extrusion here. Let me see. I need to turn it on. Always make sure to turn it on. Now, we're having a problem in this particular case because we're extruding the middle point as well. Remember what I said? So we need to find a way to exclude that one little point over there. And there are ways, if you know the index of that point, I think it's the point 0. Sometimes it's convenient to know exactly the names, the numbers of the points. Let me go back here. Point, yeah, it's the 0. So you can you can make it so that the 0 point does not get added, or you find it and you remove it. The best way for me here to do it programmatically would be just to make sure if this is, let's do the 0. Okay, let's do the 0. Compare. And we're going to see a bit of Boolean math. And I'm going to compare integers. And if this is equal to 0, if the index is equal to 0, then in that particular case, I'm gonna use a switch, and this I didn't switch. There we go. I'm going to use a switch, and this is going to be a switch between two states. So let's select this, and it's going to be 0 and 1. I'm just going to put it 0 and 1. When this is equal to 0, I want the first one to pass, the 0. Otherwise, I want this to pass here. And in theory, this should solve the problem. Oh, it's not solving the problem. So I did something wrong here. I knew I shouldn't have done this. So then I'm going to try something else. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do a Boolean operation. So when this is true and this is false, so not equals. So when both of these are true, then we're going to, so when this is true and this is true in the sense that this is not 0, then we can add it. There you go. And that's, doing a bit of Boolean is always helpful. So of course, this is, it may be missing that edge. Maybe the transfer needs to be tolerant, or the tolerant doesn't work here. But in any case, you can see a programmatic way of doing something like this. And as long as you have a way to select the points you want, and you then do a transfer, that's how you would go about selecting edges. Fantastic. So I've lost track of time and who's asking what and what's happening here. Let me go and check the comments over here. And let's go and answer some questions. Put my face up here. I'm still here. Let's go. Yeah, there's nothing. These kind of questions, it's very difficult without knowing exactly what's going on. This is a question for tech support to send it over. Let's see. All right, I saw this question at the beginning. How do I join all faces that have a Phong angle less than 5 degrees with a Phong break selection, but it's possible to do for huge meshes? What is the context? You want to do that procedurally? What I would say in this particular case, you will need to send me. All right, let me put my banners up here. So contact me on Twitter X, DM me, or if you go through the form. Did you ask the questions through the form? If you didn't, go through the form. And I think it's a good time to very quickly show the link. This is the link. And what you should do is, let me go and bring up the link. We're going to paste it in the chat as well, so you can have it available. And if you're okay being contacted, you can. I'm going to reply to you, and I'm going to give you an email. You can send me something so I can check it out, because it is banners. It is something that I want to see what you're trying to do. What is the purpose? And I think that applies to your second question as well. Let's see. So in a mesh with multiple islands, each with different polygon and normal orientation, it's possible to automate orienting all the normals toward the outside. Where you need to be able to define what's inside and outside. This is the inside and outside is not something generically defined in Cinema 4D. So you need to do some sort of programming to find out if shooting a normal array in the normal direction hits the same polygon island. If it does, that means, well, it depends how your object is defined. Let me explain, right? I want to put out here and explain how this can become a programmatic nightmare, okay? If you have a sphere, anything spherical, it's pretty trivial. When I say trivial, I say it with a huge grain of sand, salt. Grain of salt. It's not sand, it's salt. Now, if you have normal directions, let's go and put on normal directions in the view. It's in the view here. So polygon normals. There are ways, either with points or polygons. You can actually fire rays, and if we have two, let's go copy and paste. So we have this object with two polygon islands. Okay, if we tell it to start firing rays in the direction of the normal, and we don't hit ourselves, that means that that normal is pointing outwards. Or so we think. For spheres and various other objects, that is the case. But the question now becomes, how about this object? Well, unfortunately, this object, when this ray fires, although this is the outside, it will hit another object. So we need a different method to see if we're inside or outside. And there is an algorithm that says that if you fire a ray, so imagine this little line here, extending it as far as you can, and counting the intersection. So let's go. It counts 1 when it enters and 1 when it exits. That means if it's an even number of uh, hits, then this is pointing outside. If it's an odd number, it's pointing inside, and it happens to hold with any proper Euclidean surface. So we have something that for spheres is trivial, but suddenly for other shapes you have to implement a different algorithm to do that. And of course I didn't know that, and one of the amazing developers at Maxon actually told me about that trick. And it is something you can even try with pencil and paper, which is something we all need to do more often. You just get a line, any line. You can forget about the objects here, and you sort of let's close this line. Let's close this, right? So this is closed, and you want to figure out at any given moment. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it like this. You want to find out if something is pointing inwards or outwards. Let's fire a ray from here. And let me put my full screen here. Let's fire a ray this way, okay? And let's fire it all the way out. Now we know that this is pointing inside, so we should get an odd number, okay? Let's find out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. Exactly. So let's try something else. Let's take, I guess, this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's even. So it's outside. So there are tricks, algorithmic tricks you can do. This is not obvious, this, unless you have studied topology and all that. This is not obvious, and yet it's so, so smart and funny. Now, if it's not a watertight surface, well, then you got a problem, right? Imagine if you don't have this part of the edge doesn't exist. You're going to get opposite results. That's why sometimes with various algorithms, it's ambiguous. The software does not know what's inside and what's outside. And the best way to illustrate that is the plane. Which is the inside of the plane? And that's the problem with something like this. Anyway, I just want to explain that if I see the problem you're trying to solve, I may be able to help you. That will be the best thing. Okay, let's see what we are. So, Paolo, Ocean Design Berlin. Howdy. No. Yep. So, is there a way to make particles bounce off each other? Nope. Or is it still the same fix by using a cloner as the object? Yes, with rigid body dynamics. You could create an algorithm using the nodes modifier. It's going to be fairly slow depending on how far. There are tricks to make it a bit faster. There are ways to do that. Maybe it's going to find its way in one of my tutorials. I've been on node tutorial rampage. And for anyone that has watched my node tutorials, I'm going to put my face big here because I want to apologize because uh, I did a mistake, and all the node tutorials were actually posted at 720p. That's my mistake. Now, hopefully, the content was so good, and the presenter, the teacher, me, was so perfect that no one noticed. But today, I re-encoded them. It was just an encoding problem, and within the next few days, they're going to be available in 1080p. Right, so it's going to be full 2005 resolution, and we're trying to find a solution to maybe do 4K. But that's a different story. Anyway, I just want to admit my mistake, apologize for the eye strain, and yeah, let's take it from here. Um, that is the $16,000 question. Why don't you go to the forums? I hear a rumor that there may be a pre-release version because Redshift offers pre-release versions that may have something. I'm not sure because I do not have one of these cards. If you have one, send me your address and your what time you go to bed and where do you live, because I wouldn't mind coming around when you're not there and taking a look at it. You're very lucky. I've ordered one, but it's not here yet. Okay. Let's see. Now let's go to some other questions. Let's go to some other questions that I have for my list here. Let's see. Let's see. So there's a question about deleting polygons. Yes. So the question is fairly simple. So let's use the sphere. So if we select all polygons and delete, there's actually nothing left. In the past, when we deleted polygons, we were left with points. This now has moved to shift delete. If you press shift delete when you're deleting polygons or edges, you retain the points. So you essentially have a point cloud. So I hope that is helpful. And copy and paste vertices. So in Cinema 4D, as of a long time ago, can actually copy and paste various topological things. So let's assume I want to, and when I show this, I want everyone that didn't know this to tell me. So I'm selecting some polygons. Okay. What I want to do is make a copy of these polygons without touching anything else. I can just go and copy and in component mode, paste. If I move them now, I've pasted a copy of these polygons. Okay. Now, what if I want to make a new object that contains these polygons? You deselect and you paste. And this will make a new object that has only these polygons. Now, what happens if I want to go and copy these? So copy these and then go and paste them into this, paste. And it uses the global position unless you are using Alt, I think. Let's see if that is the right. No, it's Alt. Is it? There's a shortcut, Shift, paste. No, there's a shortcut that actually pastes it in the relative space of the object. Why can I not? So is it Control, paste? No. Anyway, there's some shortcut that allows you to Control Shift V, Control Shift V. No, it's not that. Anyway, but you can do that. So, and that applies to points as well. So I can go here and I can copy points. So let's get rid of this. Let's select this, go to the points, select them all, press Shift and delete. I've got all the points. I can go and select all these points, copy them or cut them, click outside, paste them. So now I have a new object that contains these points, right? So I have two objects. And that's pretty much the way you would go about doing that. Let's continue. Let's see. Let me just maximize this. Let's go. Let's see. Okay, this is there's a question which is today's quick tip. Go watch today's quick tip, and it's basically a response to the Redshift material. So uh, in the latest version of Cinema 4D, if you click on this, you get all the Redshift materials, and a lot of people have been looking for this command. This is not a command. This is just a smart search. So we can do smart searches here. And one of the smart searches I made for the quick tip just a few hours ago is classic material. So I can I can use this and I can dock it anywhere I want. So now I have classic materials here and I can change the icon and so forth. So go watch today's quick tip and you learn how to actually how to do that. So that's the answer. Let's see. What else do we have? So the other question is about using, let me copy it and let's go make a little banner, enter a banner and let's show it. It's not the whole question. Particles make a field of small bubbles rising upwards that oscillate in different directions as they rise and rotating and so forth. Yeah, I don't know what the problem would be. I mean, you can use particles or you can even use mograph or something like that. But let's very quickly go for a quick, a basic emitter, make it point upwards, 90 degrees, maybe even make it 0, just make it a point. So it's going to make some bubbles. There you go, going upwards. You can go to the properties and add some sort of spread. So that is the direction and the spread. So you get these going upwards. And of course, when they go upwards, we need some friction because they're sort of slowly going to, this is what happens with bubbles most of the time. And then in terms of wiggles, um, data mapper, nodes modifier, maybe some sort of force, a turbulence, make sure the turbulence is before the friction. And let's make sure we have very small of these wiggles, very small and 0.2 more. Good. And just make sure the friction is bigger. You can use friction to tame how things are going. This is too much now. The friction is taking away. Okay, so how would I do the wiggle? Let's turn down the friction a bit. That's too much friction. The wiggle, I have made a tutorial about, or a quick tip about how to make them oscillate in various directions. We can randomize their direction. That will be another way to do that. So as they're moving, we can oscillate the way. Let me make them go slower because there we go. So one trick is to make the particles sort of oscillate their rotations, and based on that oscillation, you just use a look, and they will go in that direction. If you have something that looks very specific, send it to me. The user is Mark from the United States. I'm just going to say the first name. So yeah, let's see. Next question. Okay, this is one which the question was about creating an organic distribution, and it was answered. We took it offline, and with the help of other users, we put this together. Now, the expectation was that the push apart effector would actually allow the if you distribute some spheres to create this nice hexagonal avoidance where you don't get any penetrations. But that's not the solution. In many cases, like these, let's start with the actual object. Okay, if you want inside and outside, I just did a circle with a ring. which gives you inside and outside. And I swept it over a an arc. There you go. So I can use the arc to control the angle and so forth. Okay. Now, remeshing using instant mesh will create a rather good um, Deloney looking setup, right? This is not a proper Deloney triangulation, but it looks very much like it. So, because the Deloney, I think, strictly speaking, is for flat surfaces. I'm not really sure, but I'm just saying things to seem a bit smarter. And in any case, the good thing with this kind of regular triangulation is that it gives you these implicit hexagons, uh, overlapping, let's say, hexagons, which means that we get relatively equal distances between these. And just to make it a bit more equidistant, you put this under a smoothing, and the smoothing is going to ever so slightly, if there's a bit of a discrepancy there, it's going to add a bit of relaxation to this. Okay, I think you can see if you go to the smooth, you'll see that it tries to do something like that. But in any case, maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. I just added it there. You can let me get rid of it because stuff. Now, then all you have to do is get a cloner and clone on the vertices. And you have a pretty good tight setting. Now, in case you have some overlaps, because especially in the edges, you do get some close, much closer points here. Now, there are ways to clean these up. One way would be put this under a connect object and extend the weld so that it sort of allows to eat them up a bit. Okay. And you can see that, it kind of does. It kind of does it. Any points that happen to be closer than something. You just need to find the sweet spot for this just to get those points done. But there's another way as well. So maybe I don't use this method. What you can do is after you clone all these, in order to avoid this, the push apart effector has the push apart mode and the hide mode. What hide would do is that it will hide the ones, it will create more space by hiding the ones that are overlapping. And when you do this, it will get rid of the ones that are closer than 3 centimeters. And this gives you actually a very clean setup. So remember, sometimes maybe the cloner or the tool you're using doesn't have the configuration or the parameters to give you what you want. In this particular case, what we were looking for was a topology that we can use to clone on. And one of these examples is an old tutorial I did, which I don't know if it's been transferred to Cineversity. When someone asked me, um, he was doing some elections, results, graphics for elections, and the parliament had a very specific way where the seats were arranged. And it was like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. And the way he wanted to clone over here was sequentially. For some reason, the seating goes like this, and then like this, and then like this, and then like this. So there, in order to do this configuration using a cloner, it's not easy. But what is easier is if you have these splines and you connect them and you create one spline. Now you can actually go and you can clone things sequentially. And the only remaining thing to do is remove any clones from the areas you don't want, which you can do with a field. You can make your splines a bit longer. And you can eliminate. So sometimes using topology as the guiding principle to clone things on is the better idea rather than trying to figure out what what's going on. Okay, let's see if we have any comments because I have a few more questions to go through. Good. Let's see. Where are we? Let's see this one. Hi, Iris Green. We need to use Garamond. This is a lowercase l. I was just saying before, just trips me over. Hi, I'm a beginner in Cinema 4D. How do I make a sphere stick to a cylinder and wrap around it smoothly like a liquid? If it's just a sphere and a cylinder, there are various things we can do. Let's go and try a few of these permutations, okay? So I have a sphere and I have a cylinder. And you want to make this sort of wrap around. Now, like it's a liquid, it's not going to be a liquid, right? Let's be realistic here. I'm going to rotate this way, so 90 degrees. And I'm going to use, for this particular case, a bend deformer. And I want the bend to occur in this direction. And I'm going to make it a child, put it under there, and bend it. So in theory, what I'm doing now is I'm bending the sphere around the cylinder, okay? Now, if you want more to do it more intricately, you can use maybe simulations to a certain extent if you want to do it that way. So you can rotate this 90 degrees. You can now take the sphere. Let's remove all that. Let's bring it up here. And let's make this into a collider. So simulation, collider. Let's make this into a cloth. So simulation, cloth, and it's going to wrap around. Well, it didn't wrap around because it's not soft enough. So let me rotate this 90 degrees nicely. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to stretch it out a bit. Maybe it needs a bit of stretching out. And now it's going to go floop, something like that. So depending on what you're trying to do, there could be numerous methods to do something like that. The context is the most important thing. So let's go to the second question, follow up. This isn't something a beginner should be doing. Try them, melt and shrink wrap deformers. Oh yeah, Demis. Yeah, something like that. There are many different ways to go about this. Thank you very much for the answer. What icon is missing? Oh, you mean the Drake? Do you mean the show redshift? If you're using, because this was added to the user interface, if you're using your own user interfaces from the previous version, it won't be there. And the way to add it is to go and create your own smart search, or the smart search that says it should be somewhere here. I think it should. Redshift materials, there it is. All you have to do, go here. Let me maximize my screen. Go here and find in the other Redshift materials and just drag it in your interface. And then you're going to have it again. Okay. Okay. Let's see. What is this? Where are we? Sorry. There we go. How do I change all values X, Y, Z at once when scrubbing and when typing in a value? Okay. I love it. I see that's the kind of stuff. Maybe I should make a quick tip. I'm gonna forget. I don't want to forget. Someone remind me. So this is how you do this. Let's go here. Okay. If you want to change all the values and have the same value at once, I'm going to do it with something that looks good, and that is a plane. Go to the object. What you have to do is select both. So you're going to click on this to make it orange. shift click to make this orange, and then use your control key. If I control now, it makes these grow together. If I type here 5 and press control enter, it will go to both. So selecting all the things, I don't even know, maybe it works with this as well. No, it has to be the same value. So it's smart. Cinema 4D is smart enough to know that, yeah, these are unconnected to these. So there you go. You just have to select. See, with one, it doesn't do it. You shift click and you select, or control click to toggle, and hold control, or command if you're a Mac, and there you go. And then type your value, enter, and return. That's it. Mind blown. If your mind was blown, let us know. Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, go to Cineversity. Go to Cineversity with any Cinema 4D subscription. You have a Cineversity subscription, and you can check out the first 21 tutorials I've made for nodes. You can also find Dominic Rockley. Go to the Maximum Training Team YouTube channel and check out the January month of nodes. We had 4, I think, episodes with amazing artist Dominic Rockley. So check that out. And there are quite a few. Dominic has his own YouTube channel as well. So go check that out. So there's quite a bit. I've even done a couple of nodes tutorials on my own YouTube channel. I've done old nodes tutorials on Cineversity. So there's a lot of stuff. Okay. Now the other question. Okay. I need to say this. If anyone wants to get into scene nodes and you don't understand what vectors are, what matrices are, what a matrix transform is, what normals are, what is a vector or a normalized vector, and all that kind of stuff, don't, unless you're going to do modeling. So go check out on my YouTube channel, just search for Noseman, YouTube at Noseman. Check and see, I show how to do modeling, and you can create your own modeling deformers. But if you want to start doing fancy stuff, the fancy stuff doesn't come for free. It comes because you understand the math and the process, and then you just learn how to apply that in Cinema 4D. So go check out the tutorials on Cineversity. I'm going to even show you where they are. And if you go to Cineversity, and these are all the new ones that Chris is doing for his capsules. Fantastic. They were just posted. Go check them out. And let's go here and search for nodes. And somewhere around here, you find mine. So series. And you find, this is the old one. Ooh, this is 3 hours worth, but it's old. Some things are relevant, but not that much. So 21 videos here, 720 until the next. If you want to use node workflows, right? And there you go. So I try to show applicable things, but I'm not teaching the fundamental information. That is something that's outside of the context of this. Anyway, so yeah, start from there. Let's see. What do we have here? Let's see. Mind obliterated. Go drink some water. Yeah. Okay. Is there a way to make a selection based on the object type or similarity? Okay. Interesting question. Not automatically. You can't do that automatically. A leprechaun wrote a plugin for me for my YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube channel, there's something called Instancifier. And the Instancifier does something very similar. It checks the scene and finds all the objects that have the same topology and keeps one and makes all the others instances. It's a Python script, so you can maybe find a way to do that. But overall, that's not a very if the rotations are the same, if the geometry. So let me show you what I mean here, because again, it's one of those things where, oh yeah, it appears simple. So this is an editable cube, okay? The same editable cube where I'm going to take the points and I'm going to rotate them. Okay? Or even better, to confuse you a bit more, instead of rotating the points, I'm going to rotate my axes. So I have these two cubes. My question is, do you want to be able to identify one and call it the same as the other? The problem here is that, in case you didn't know, if you move the axes, there is no concept in Cinema 4D of moving the axes. What you're actually doing is you're moving the points in the absolute opposite direction. And then the object itself is being recentered. And it appears that the axis is moved. That's the way it works. So as far as the point positions now are concerned, if you look at the values, say this point, look at this value, okay? 27, 29, 168. It's not the same as this. Come on, I want to double click. Yeah, get rid of that. 100, 100, and 100. So if you are measuring the positions, if you want to find the similarity and say, I want to identify if these two cubes are the same or equal object, let's say if they're off by a centimeter of two, these two are going to present themselves as totally different because the values have nothing to do with each other. The way to do this properly, quote, is to find a common matrix. So you would go and you would say, irrelevant of where the points are, I'm going to take this object and define the topmost polygon as my axis. Then I'm going to go to this object and get the topmost object as the axis and align the axis to the normals of that polygon. Now, given that these two polygons, I've measured them and they're the same, let's go and measure all the other points. And if they happen to be within that range and so forth, then let's call these objects the same. But it becomes extremely complicated to do. So, yeah, that's my answer. Sorry about that. Okie doke. Let's see what else we have here. Andreas, what's up? I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. Kaboom. Kaboom. Which one of the things was a kaboom? Okay. So, yeah, object type or similarity. The answer is yes, but you need to jump through hoops. There's nothing automatic that does that. Okay. Let's see what this says. Is there a way to create parametric patterns in Redshift other than the old tiles node? Octane has a great dedicated node for this area. Yeah. I'm sure if you can't find, well, you can combine these, right? You can combine tiles and all that. Maybe there are ways you can use maybe noises in the tile. Right. Let me try something. I'm going to try something because you know that when danger looms, I'm going to go and try something. Why do I do this to myself? So let's go over here and let's create a Redshift material and let's drag it here. And let's put this over here. And let's close this session with let's make sure that this fails. Okay, I'm going to take this and put it here. I'm going to turn on my Redshift. And we're going to try and fail here. So grab this, put it here. Excellent. And close this. Okay. Let's see what we can do. One thing, we can use a tile, right? We can use a tile. But I think what you can do in a tile, you can drive the tile colors with a shader. Okay. Now, I don't know what this is going to look like. Let's say I want to grout here, or I don't know. Let's take one of these. Let's find something. A sawtooth. If I want a gradient in the red. So let's expose this and see if that works. I don't even know if it's going to work. So let's get a ramp. Let's get the ramp and put it in this. I'll be darned. So you can do this, and it uses the whole UV tile. Okay. So I can put that in that tile. So I can add some sort of preset here. There you go. And maybe I can take another tile. Let's take, what shall I take here? I'm going to press Q. Oh, I thought Q would solo. It doesn't. Anyway, let's get a polka. I think we had polkas. Where are my little dots? Circles. Okay. Little circles. There you go. Let's put the circles in. Let's put the circles where the gray is going to be. Let's put the circles there. Let's see this. Yeah, there you go. So it may not be exactly what you're looking for, but there are things you can do here to create these little patterns. There is stuff that I wish worked slightly differently, or the one thing I do know is that the Redshift team is working extremely hard to get as many possible features with every release. So we take them as they come. If there's any specific thing that Octane does you would like to see if it can be done. Oh, and one more thing, right? When I say this, I'm going to show my face to show you that I'm being genuine. Don't frown on OSL. There is a huge repository. If you just go and in your favorite search engine, go and look for Redshift OSL repository. I think it's on GitHub or something like that. There are tons of utilities you can use that do all sorts of things that are very useful. The fact that it's programmed in OSL shouldn't make a difference. Right? You just drag it in and you use it. So, yeah, I don't know how much this satisfies you, but yeah, Parquet. It has Parquet. There you go. Look at that. Yeah. Anyhow, so let's see. Let's go. I'm going to go to the spreadsheet for a second because there was something I wanted to show. Okay. This is going to be cool. This everyone is going to love this, right? You want to, and for everyone that left the stream, ha ha ha! I laugh in your faces because this is going to be the coolest thing you've ever seen. Oops. I want to, yeah, there we go. Particles volume builder. Okay. I'm going to post this and I'm going to ask you, is it possible to make a motion blur from a volume mesher? So I want to use particles to do and mesh the particles to do some sort of quasi liquid effect, but I want the mesher to have motion blur. I'm going to wait for 30 seconds and I'm going to twiddle my fingers here. I want someone to post yes or no. Let's see. I look forward to answer my question next session. I'm trying to find what that question, while we're waiting for an answer here. Precious, which question are we referring to? Let's see if we're referring to that particular one. Give me a second. Yes, I'm going to give you some sort of direction. I don't know if this is it. And before the answers come in, I want to explain a couple of things. Let me hide this and maximize this. Thank you very much for sending me a reference. I like it when users are considerate and they send me some reference. I've done some investigation, and apparently, uh, I can't be showing references because if something was made by a third party, another artist or something like that, we as a company do not have the right to show something. Um, Even if we credit someone, we don't know if that something, because it's not that this is just a live show and we're showing things fleetingly. There is there is law that prohibits you from, I guess, showing people's personal work without proper accreditation and stuff like that. Although I'm not a legal expert, this is something that I cannot do anymore. So I cannot show anyone the reference that um, this idea precious user sent. So it's been unfortunate, but I'm going to try. Yes, I'm going to try and show the idea is that we get these things that both move and rotate, but the rotation does not, it happens. Let me go here and let me show something here. I need to get the first one and the second one. I'm going to move this even more. Okay. You'll see that there's a swinging motion and a spring and a swing motion. So I'm going to, until I'm just waiting for anyone to say if they think we can use particles and a measure and transfer the velocity of the particles to the measure for motion blur, knowing that a measure changes point count. All right. So I'm waiting for that. Let's see here. And let me maximize this. So the way, there must be more ways to do this. And the way I'm doing this is, first of all, I'm cloning on a sphere, right? We have this sphere here. And because there was a very particular shape, this is not the correct shape. This is just a shape. Using the topology to create, let me just make sure I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. And I'm going to go back and we have this, press play. There we go. So we got one and we got the other. This should be 0, 0, 0. Okay. So if we start by just putting spheres on the other sphere, the problem we're going to have is that when we move them using an effector and we move them out, the pivot point moves with the object. We want the pivot point to stay here, so they sort of oscillate when they're going to start swinging around. So my idea is to have two versions of these spheres. One is going to be with the axes here and the sphere over here. This is the far, and this version here is going to have the axes in the same position. The idea being that when I rotate this, it's going to swing. Whereas when I rotate this, because it's in the same position, it's just going to rotate. And I'm using these two as children of the cloner. And the cloner is in blend mode, very important mode that allows you to blend between the state of the attributes or the hierarchical state of each and every one of the clones. It's one of the really powerful things that mograph has. In order to control the blending, we are going to use the plane move. And in order to control this plane move, we are not going to move it. We are going to change the blending mode. So by modifying the clone, we're actually, let me get rid of this linear field. What we're doing here is we are blending from one state of that cloner to the other state of that cloner. Cloner 1, cloner 2. Forget about that pop. It does. That's not a problem when we put the field in here. Okay. So the distance of the sphere from its original point is going to be dealt with using this. Because now, if I decide to rotate these little buggers, the rotation happens from the base. So let me go and make this fewer components so we can see better what's going on. And let's make these bigger. So I'm just exaggerating so we can see kind of what's going on here, maybe 5. So if I take my rotate now and start rotating these, you will see they're not rotating They're rotating from their base, right? From their base. Look, wee, perfect. And this is sort of the movement we are trying to achieve, which is, see, this, the Z is the same because I've moved them on the Z. But we have this and we have this. And I just set it to 60 and 60 as the final position. And now it's a matter of just adding fields to play with this, right? I'm going to use this linear field both in the plane effector, so plane mode, oh, linear field in here, and rotate linear field, the same linear field. So now when the linear field comes in, they're going to move and do that as well. Let's get rid of the colors. Let's say we don't want colors here. And then I'm just going to go to my rotation and add a delay with a spring effect. And this is pretty much, you know, the effect itself is this with very, very, very few permutations, right? But this is basically the the premise of the effect. Excellent. Um, Let me see. Maybe I can. If you hit me up, Precious, if you hit me up on Twitter and remind me, I can email this to you, so you can have some sort of reference. Jiggle O2, and you can start working on it. I hope, you know. I hope this is what you were after, even if it moves you in the right direction. Okay, let's see now. Um, no, right. So um, the answer is no. And the problem with varying point counts. So if you have stable point counts, so let me explain this first, so that I set some expectations for all of you users out there. We have an object, and this object has a certain topology, and the object is deforming or moving in space or doing all sorts of things. The points themselves, the point number is the same. So when I take this object and I start deforming it, let's deform it crazily point, and let's go and set the Z, and let's go here and put a random field, and let's maximize the screen so you can see better what's going on, and let's tell this to animate, and let's press play, right? And let's say these are moving, and let's say they're moving very fast, and you want motion blur. There's no problem with this because for each frame, there is a specific value, position value for the clone. So at the next frame, it's here, which means that Redshift can find where it was and where it is and create the vector motion blur in between. So there's no real problem. I can actually do intermediate steps by going through the sub steps. Just in case you didn't know, if I go here and I use my up and down arrow, I can actually go in increments of 10 in my frame, and I can see the sub steps, right? So now it's going at a hundredths of a frame. And if you ever want to see what's going on in between a frame, you can do this. Not that it's really helpful, but oh, I'm traveling in time. I've slowed down time. Anyway, and the idea being that we have the same number of points that move in different positions. We can use the previous and next position to create the direction it's moving, and hence create a beautiful little thing. Now, a way to see this is if you go and create a tracer and use um, not trace paths. I don't want to connect. I want to trace path, sorry. And I want to do from end one. What you see here is that we're getting lines. Each line represents the vector that it's traveling. We can do this. But what happens if we say, I'm going to start at the 10 segments and go to 16 segments? Look at what happens every time the segments change. Because we're changing points here, the whole stability of the surface gets totally out of whack. So we're losing these really nice lines, which are our vector lines. Okay? So how do we solve this problem? Well, solve this problem. I'll show you how to solve this problem. So let's go and see, first of all, here we got particle emitter. I've cached them. I don't need to, but I did because I'm cool. There you go. So they're moving. So press play. There you go. And let's render this. No way we get motion blur. Okay. And it's a volume builder. How do we do this? Okay. Let me show you. The reason it's so easy that I have to make it feel more suspenseful, like dun 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 dun. Okay, it's simple. What we are going to do is we are going to create a vertex color. So let's go and do it right from the start. Let's go and create a basic particle emitter. Let's go and create a sphere, and let's go and make these particles go quite fast. So just that we have a bit of speed. Set this to 10 frames. I only want 10 frames, and I want it to stop at the end because I want to have a final state at the end. There you go. And these are moving, right? It's the middle when they're moving. Then I'm going to go and get a builder and a mesher. So let's get a mesher here. And let's put the particle group underneath it. Okay. And we have, here are our meshes. And these meshes, they change, right? There's no stability. We have new particles going on and so forth. The indices are different and so forth. There's no expectation for this to be topologically stable from one frame to another. It just changes. So what we need to do is find a way to transfer one of the parameters. Now watch this. The geniuses, the developers, when you add a particle group into a field, any field, I'm just using a plane effector, put a field. What it allows you to do is to take various, use various parameters from the particle to drive the value, which is this, the squiggly thing, the color, which is this, and the direction, which you will find in things like the target effector. The target effector has a direction, and there it's that arrow. Okay, normals have it, and so forth. So what we're going to do is create a vertex color. And the reason we're using a vertex color is that the vertex color is the only point attribute that can hold 3 values, whereas the weight, the vertex map holds only 1. And what we're going to do, unclamp it, because the values can be minus and plus and all that. And in here, we are going to drag our particle group. We are going to tell these particles, we know that the color source is the color, the direction source is the velocity. What I want to do here is use the velocity as a color, not to render them, but because as a color, I can use it in my vertex color. Watch this. How do I convert a velocity into the color of this list so that I get the colors properly here? You use the channel convert, the magical conversion field that does all the dirty work for you. Make this a child of the source. And we are going to tell the channel convert, don't forget, and clamp this. We're going to tell it, I want the color of this field to be the direction. No way. What we're doing, I said that for emphasis. Like, no way. So basically what we're doing here is we are encoding the velocity of each particle by proximity, because if you go to the particle group, this is the proximity. So for 20 centimeters, the best thing you could do is find in the volume builder how large your blob is going to be. And it's 15 centimeters. So that this 15 centimeters, we know that this is a little sphere that's approximately 15 centimeters in radius. These are the blobs. By setting it to nearest point and about 20 centimeters, all these points are going to get a value which is sort of where we want it to be. And you can see that if it's smaller, it doesn't transfer it. If it's bigger, it transfers more of that value. We can play with this because it's going to mix. If you have tighter geometry, these things are going to mix and so forth. So now, with this, we now have the directions they're moving, their velocities, essentially. And the reason we unclamped this was because we want these velocities to, uh, be 100 and so forth. Now, one thing you need to be very careful with is when we create a channel convert, by definition, it's set to max. No, 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 no. You have to set it to normal. If you don't set it to normal, it ain't going to work. Select this and let's give it a name. It's called vertex color, but where's the fun in that? We're going to call it my velocity. Wow. I'm going to copy this and final thing, right click on the measure, add a RS object tag, go to the motion blur, activate it, and in the X, just type the name of that. And next, make this 100 times bigger. Let's see what's going to happen. Let's play this. Let's turn on motion blur. Let's set it to movie, and let's set this to 600% degrees because I want my motion blur to be really, really, really. Look at that everywhere. So the answer to today's question is yes, you can transfer particle velocity to a measure. And this method I showed you here, given a thoughtful application, you can actually expand it not only to particles, but on anything you have access to its velocity. So you could use what's called in nodes the memory node to record the position of any point cloud or anything in one state and compare it to the next, from one frame to another frame. That is essentially the difference, the subtraction of one position from the other position, from frame to frame, would literally give you the velocity of the object, which is the direction and the speed encoded in one little vector. Using this method, even if what you're trying to render doesn't work out of the box using motion blur because it's based on a measure or something like that, or the geometry for whatever reason changes, you can expand this method if you do it in a thoughtful manner. But yeah, the answer is that you can do this. Now, there are going to be various implications, especially if these things are very close to each other. I don't know. Let's go and create more of these and see what happens. I want to see some of them blending. Okay, so these are blending now. Let's find out. Let's put a few more. I want to see how this reacts if there's a mess of particles going on. We're going to get some blending of the vectors, but look at that. It looks good. That's what you would expect to see, right? Yeah, I just figured this out this morning. I feel very proud of myself. Okay, so let's see if we have any other questions here. Although we're approaching the bottom of the half-hour overrun, let's see where we are. Let's see. Formula field. Exactly what I want to select. I can use. I don't know what this relates to. Anyway, it's just we're going to close the show. I'm just going to see if there's any mind-blowing questions here. And no, it isn't. So, how do you like my solution, Blood Rapture? Let's see. Next one. Power camera plays to the scene. So, this time would be, well, we don't have time. I just want to go through this. Maybe there's a simple answer. If it's possible to combine different cameras into the same scene, for example, a text effect that needs a parallel camera placed in a scene where the camera is standard. You can have many different cameras in your project. And you can switch using the stage object. That's the point of the stage object, if I'm not mistaken. We have this Redshift camera. Let's navigate around. Let's create another Redshift camera, and let's set this camera to be, I don't know, spherical or parallel or orthographic. Okay, so we have these two cameras, and the stage object is an object where you put you keyframe camera. So for the first 3 frames, I have this camera, and then I move to the next. So keyframe, next frame, next camera, keyframe. So this is we're gonna have one camera, and the next frame we're gonna see the other camera. So you can do this. You can actually animate between which camera is used using the stage object and keyframes. Okay. Oh my! I'm not showing anything. Let's do it again. Hello, everyone. This is Noseman, and I forgot to show my screen while I'm showing something. I knew that something like this was going to happen, so let's do this again. Right. So this is my particle scene. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to create 2 cameras. One standard camera. Let me navigate around, and one more camera where it's going to be orthographic. Right. So we have one camera and the other camera. These animations, whatever, they're fancy but not helpful. Go and create what's called a stage object. So Shift C, bring up the stage object. And I'm going to go for the first 4 frames. I'm going to use the first camera. I'm going to keyframe this. And then I'm going to go to the next frame and I'm going to use the second camera and keyframe it. Now, when I go through this, you will see that at that frame, the camera is going to switch to the other one. So we can do that. There's absolutely no problem. This is orthographic and the parallel. It says parallel, and this one is this. So unless you're referring to something else, you can actually do that without any problem. We do not have an indie plan. Surprisingly, if you're interested in something like this, please contact Maxon. But we don't have an indie license. Let's see. Of course, they're genius. I mean, let's see. Well, that's exactly what I did. You can't see the screen. Yes, I know, but now you can. Hey, Marco, how's it doing? How's it going? Hope everything's well. Let's see. Yes, we can't see. We can't see. We can't see. Okay, classic. Yeah. All right. Okay, I think I'm done. That's it. That's it for today. Would you allow me to do a very quick housekeeping? So let me quickly do a housekeeping session while my face is here as well. And let me bring up this little page here. So please, if you want to go to this, let's say, little hub over here, just go and click on this link so we know where it's coming from. If you use these links, people know that the show is, driving people to these pages and so forth. It generally helps for us to know where the traffic is coming from. So the training team, we can optimize what we're saying, what we're doing. That's why we're shifting things around, right? The housekeeping, we thought, well, why do we, if someone doesn't want to watch it, we shouldn't have to force them. We're not like, television where you have to watch an advert every 6 minutes. We don't want to do that. I am a live advert of the magnificence of Maxon products, so we don't need to do that. So we're just leaving it at the end so people can decide to leave. And you can go to the Maxon events. This is where stuff that's happening, live events and shows and Master Trainers and Create with Maxon. Check out the Create with Maxon. It's with Rodolfo Silva. He's a ZBrush and game engine extraordinaire, and he's showing us how to do the assets, high quality gaming assets. But I showed some interesting stuff yesterday as well. So although I can't compete, I try to insert myself whenever I can. Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. All these videos are posted live on both the Maxon and the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. The Create with Maxon yesterday's stream is also on the ZBrush, on the Maxon ZBrush YouTube channel. For recorded sessions, please just go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel, where we host them a day or two after being live. with timestamps and comments, which are very kindly provided by our friend and mentor, Dr. Sassy, which we appreciate all his dedication. And we're not islands. We work as a team, and we have an incredible team in the background. Max on YouTube channel, just go here and envy the quality of work that people do using our products. ZBrush, I just go here when I need a dose of humility. It doesn't come very often. I don't understand what that means, but nonetheless, just looking at what people are doing, um, it in theory it should humble me, but I'm immune to that. And of course, go to Cineversity and check out all the amazing tutorials that we have here. Cineversity tutorials, all tutorials. And again, thank you very much for hanging out with me. Happy spring. Tomorrow is the first day of spring. And I think it's the spring equinox, right? Equinox. Equal night, equal day for the North Hemisphere. And yeah, take care, everyone. Thanks for joining. Trying to find the end buttons here. There we go. That's the end. There's a QR code. I don't know what it does, but test it. Toodaloo.